I want to start off by welcoming everyone today who has joined the webinar and for being here with us. You'll meet our guests here shortly. My name is Charles Gabriel. I'm a global client partner here at Akkio, and I get the privilege of being the MC for today's webinar. Our webinar is titled The New Way of Working, Human plus AI Collaboration in Modern Media. Before we get going, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, so we will share out a link that you can pass on to colleagues and coworkers who may have missed today's session. If you do have questions during the session, feel free to drop them in the chat. We will be monitoring. We'll do our best to incorporate any questions towards the end of the conversation. But before we get going and before we meet the panelists, I get to give a couple of remarks because I'm holding the notes and I got the mic. So I wanted to start today with something that Mark Andreessen said recently in a podcast that struck me. The best coders using AI today aren't reporting 2x productivity gains. They're reporting 10x. And the gap between people who are using AI and people who are elite with AI is widening, not narrowing. That's not a coding story. That's the story for every role across media, advertising, and the agencies that serve them. Let that sink in. For our industry, that's not an abstract idea. The work is already shifting. The question isn't whether your workflows will look different in 3 years. They will. The question is whether you're architecting that change deliberately or just reacting to it as it happens. I'd push back on any framing that this is a threat. The smarter framing is this: jobs are bundles of tasks, and tasks are changing, but the jobs themselves persist. What's shifting is the tasks that humans own and what AI will handle. And that's really what we mean when we're talking about the human and AI collaboration here. Not AI as a replacement, but AI as infrastructure that makes your people better at being people. Faster synthesis, smarter insights, more time for thinking, more time for the relationships that actually win clients and retain clients. So that's the gist of the conversation for today. And now let me introduce our panelists and we will get started. So today we have joining us from Experian, Jake Abraham, Head of Strategic Partnerships. Welcome, Jake. We're also joined today by Maggie Zach, who is the EVP of Analytics and Engineering from Havas Media Network. Thank you, Maggie. And our very own John Riley, CEO and co-founder of Akkio.
Everyone.
So, no warm-up, no softballs. We're going to jump right into the first topic. So today's first topic is navigating AI adoption without a blueprint, because there really isn't one yet. So I'm going to give a question to everybody, but I'm going to start here, ladies first, with Maggie. So Maggie, AI is still relatively new technology for many media companies within the industry. So how are you seeing your organization embrace it today?
Great question. So first of all, Havas is well into our journey when it comes to incorporating AI. It is currently embedded in our global operating system, which we call Converged AI, and it powers how 23,000 people globally work across the entire Havas group. So it is really becoming part of our DNA. And we leverage it in two ways. One, we want to make sure we're driving efficiencies throughout the entire client journey. So in every way that we work with our clients, through building out intelligence, designing the right media plans, activating smartly and measuring intelligently, we're leveraging AI to do those faster. And the reality is, as our clients' goals and objectives and their business becomes more complex, we need to bring that AI so that we can meet those needs and demands. And so aside from efficiencies, we're also building out solutions driven by AI that allow us to do things faster and at scale. So first of all, we've got a Match.ai solution that allows us to automate our audience activation at scale. We've got converged measure, which really helps us fill in the attribution gaps. That is a great use case for AI. So we can deliver how is that campaign performing and be more actionable about optimizations. We're delivering agentic reporting currently where we're leveraging natural language and real-time dashboarding to extract those insights. So overall, we're leveraging it now and we're seeing those results in ways that we're able to move faster, be more precise, and frankly, create more for our clients.
That's great. You mentioned a lot of touch points across the campaign workflow that Havas has been working on. So kudos to you guys. Is there any particular area that you're seeing deliver like quick results for you? Is it on the planning side? Is it on the reporting side, or anything in between?
I would say it's across the board. I mean, the reality is that we're, want to make sure that one, we've got the human experience and expertise front and center. And so it's really about leveraging AI in a way that's making us just deliver in a smarter and
Mhm.
faster way. Selfishly, we see it more on the analytics side and engineering side in being able to extract those insights faster
Mhm.
and make more strategic recommendations on how to improve media plans.
Great. Thank you, Maggie. Just taking some notes on what you said there. Jake, same question here. Again, relatively new technology. How is Experian embracing this today?
Great. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the question. Obviously, Experian globally, huge corporation. I'm super focused on marketing services here in North America. I can say globally, obviously, a huge amount of investment going in, specifically within what I'm seeing, because we are a company, founded in deep data, certainly highly regulated spaces. So therefore, governance of data is always going to be of primary importance, and privacy of data is always going to be of primary importance. So I think a lot of the work that's being done here is really that foundational work because AI, as you said, super new tool set with an incredible amount of power. But how do we ensure that all of the safety and all of the trust that has been built in Experian over the years continues to follow us through the AI journey? So that's like kind of a primary component here, and one that, I would say is such a big part of the infrastructure that it means, we look at very large enterprise in that way. When it comes to what we're doing here in North America with the EMS, I would say it's a combination of the journey being starting with like the point tools, and then moving into some of more of like, well, how do we automate workflows? And then I think eventually into some of that autonomous decisioning. That's kind of like the journey here. I think one of the things that I see that's really interesting is the way in which the company isn't just looking at it from infrastructure and enterprise, but really also enabling employees to start testing on their own. So it's not just about how do we interact with clients, which is obviously critically important. That's the growth of the business, but also making sure that the employees here feel like they're a part of this journey because it is only through their
Mhm.
interaction with their own workflows, how they interact with their own teams. So there's parts of this that are about our clients and the enterprise, and then there's also pieces that are ensuring that the teams and the talent here not only feel familiar, but to your point from your quote earlier on, like how do you ensure that people are like 2x, 10x, 100x their work?
And for sure, there's some shift, but the jobs do persist. You touched on a couple of great points there, and I think that the setting the foundation point that you brought up is very critical. I think you have some organizations diving in, and that's great, but then going back to set the foundation. So I think what you are doing at Experian, and what I've learned from you is quite deliberate and really strong. Um, just shifting here to John really quickly, just to give you the same question, John. Knowing what we do as a company, but thinking about how new the technology is, how is Akkio embracing it, even for our own work and then for our customers?
Yeah, it's a really tricky time because the capability is an exponential curve, and so what you can do with a language model is changing faster than anyone can keep up, and it's only going to accelerate from here. And also, like the harnesses put around those language models are enabling them to do different types of tasks than you could do on your own, just directly prompting them in a lot more efficient manner and more effectively. And I think you could sort of generalize what we do at Akkio to be we're building like an enterprise enablement infrastructure or harness system that allows you to have that security that Jake was talking about, and enable the types of automation that Maggie was talking about in a platform that is like observable and secure for your enterprise. But the key is you have to be nimble. So you have to like be able to build this like enterprise architecture, but you have to pair it with the assumption that the tasks that can be automated are going to be increasingly complex and in shorter timeframes than ever before. You have to design for a moving target. This is a Wayne Gretzky skate to where the puck is going, but on like very hard mode because like in a year, what's going to be possible is wildly different than what's possible today. So whatever you build needs to keep that in mind, and then that all intersects, like all of the technology framework intersects with people, and that's also like quite complex because this is sort of a new way of working. I think the people who will do best here are the people who are leaned in or willing to try and learn, and I think that's generally the case with people anyways, but the only way you can like adapt to some rapidly changing environment is to be learning forward. And so you need systems that help people learn, that help educate them. You need leaders that are leaned in. Internally, we have some advantages because we're a little bit smaller than some of the like big corporations out there, in that we can pivot a little bit faster in our adoption of tools or capabilities. So we've been pushing very hard across the stack for people to use AI to build AI and to be at the cutting edge of what's possible, and not to assume something can't be done with a language model or Claude Code or something like that, but to figure out where the rough spots remain, and then watch, because today is the worst it will ever be, and in 3 or 6 months it'll be wildly more capable. So it's a tough environment.
Thank you, John. And as Akkio is a provider of AI infrastructure to automate workflows, I think that notion of flexibility in your stack is really important, and everyone should be thinking about that, whether you're building or buying or partnering. You need to have flexibility in your technology as this evolution is happening extremely quickly with AI, and so new tools are emerging, daily, basically. All right, just shifting to a second question here within the same topic. And Jacob, I'll start with you on this one. Human expertise and AI automation increasingly working side by side. How do you see these two forces intersecting with your organization's day-to-day work?
Wow, that's really not a softball. Again, I feel like we're still in such early days that I think we want to ensure that we're like allowing for experimentation within the guidelines, right? So like as John said, I think one of the things about Akkio that's always been impressive to me is, and I love the term he uses, harnessing. Like I think that we want to ensure that there are sandbox environments where there's a lot of experimentation that can happen, very much like within our own systems. At the same time, when obviously we're talking about client work, that those things are like single tenancy and there's no ability for like any information to jump from tenant to tenant. So like I think for the humans that are involved in this work, which are the key components, there's the experimentation, and then there's also like the education, right? So like understanding that AI is not just a powerful tool, but it is going to be used in ways that keep client data and client information totally private, and how that is done. And that doesn't need to be told to everyone in the most technical ways, right? We have obviously like technical leaders in the organization, but also to commercial teams and sales teams to understand that they can also go out and market and talk about these things in ways that we can guarantee the safety and we can guarantee the privacy. So I think we're still in those days of like, people talk about AI. It's the number one topic you're going to hear in the popular press as well. So like it's the topic. You're going to go home, you talk to your kids about AI, you talk to your parents about AI, you talk to your colleagues about AI. So it's not like it's a new discussion, but there's so much misinformation about so much of what's going on. I think it's important for us at the corporate level to like identify opportunities, make sure people feel more and more comfortable, and give them the opportunities to really see how we will be collaborating with these tools in the future. And that's been like a really exciting part of my job.
Fantastic. For
Mhm.
a non-softball, you crushed that. Uh, and then the experimentation piece with some guardrails, I think, is also really important because you don't want people, exploiting the company's data in ways that you don't want that used. So, Maggie, same
Mhm.
question. On a day-to-day basis, how do you see this AI automation and humans working side by side? How do you see that working in your organization today?
Yeah. So I actually don't like the analogy of side by side, right? Because
Mm,
human is still, our people, we're an agency of people, that's front and center. And
mm,
it's really more about how AI and automation just makes us smarter, better, faster, more nimble, more insightful for our clients and for the way we work and the way we reach out to the right people and the right consumers on behalf of our clients. So on the one hand, if we're honest, there's still a tremendous amount of routine, high volume tasks that just weigh us down. And as media becomes more complex, as our clients' business becomes more complex, we really, as an organization and an industry, need to shift in the way we work so we can meet those demands. And so on the
mhm,
one hand, I view this as a way of, you know, automation these days is really more about shifting time, right? So instead of one team manually doing reporting, we have dashboards. But the reality is you still now have a team of engineers to create and build and maintain those dashboards. I see AI in our organization as really being a way to truly automate. So we're really reducing the time and effort spent to essentially allow us to deliver strong, polished outputs, whether they're audience insights, media plans that we're leveraging machine learning and MMM models to really personalize those plans, and that we're measuring that activation in a way that we can get those results daily instead of waiting till the end of the campaign. So,
mhm,
the forefront of the human experience is like AI should be adding value to what we do really well and what we know and our expertise. And that's where it's really more about that integration, not a side by side.
mhm. No, it's a really, really good point, Maggie. Thank you for stating it that way. And look, for my limited technical experience, I already see how it's improving my outputs when I use AI. John, you want to wrap this up here for us in this section, just in terms of that automation? And I know we're big fans of automation. I know you're fans of automation, but in terms of the day-to-day and how these things intersect.
Yeah, I think Maggie largely has it right. I think about like the sort of hierarchy of tasks, and we're at a point today where you can take like a high volume, low judgment task and automate it like with reasonable ease. That couldn't be done before because there's some thinking that goes into it, but that thinking is like uh, not like heavy judgment thinking. It's a little bit of
Mhm,
like process automation or enablement. And what I think we'll watch happen over time is like the higher volume, high judgment tasks will start to be automatable as well. But the key thing here is that the people need to still be validating all the work that's being done, and there needs to be an observability layer. There needs to be a traceability layer to the decision making. Nobody out there that I'm aware of yet is proposing you spend $50 million on a campaign that nobody actually looked at. I think that'd be kind of a wild proposition. We may get there, but there's a long path of like proof establishment and probably a lot of like landmines that will be run over and things that will get blown up on the way to being able to have that level of confidence that something won't go dramatically wrong when automated at scale. So it's a really interesting time, and I think we're all working to find where you can automate like today and where we think it's going to be going tomorrow.
mhm. All right. Thank you, John, for tying that up there and bringing up the validation and observability piece, which I think is critical. Let's move to the next topic. So, reframing how we think about AI in media. Maggie, going to start with you here. what does it mean to truly collaborate with AI versus just using AI tools? And I think most organizations likely started with a handful of separate tools. So
Mhm.
what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of people and probably people on my teams and people that I work with, that are asking the question, is AI going to take my job? Right. And I think we really have to think about AI as how we, to the point of the question, like it's truly collaborating with it, it's not one or the other. And so everyone has a responsibility to look at what is it the work they're delivering? What are the ways they're interacting with other disciplines? And what are the things that they need to be able to accomplish those tasks and accomplish those goals in a way that's frankly more efficient and allows us to spend more time on that strategic thinking. So in working with AI, I often think about it's like, well, if you cheated on a test, right, you didn't actually learn the material. And
Mhm.
so here it's you can't cheat and let AI just create the report or create the strategic plan. You gotta use it almost like an assistant, and you have to still be responsible for knowing the data behind it, right? You have
Mhm.
to leverage that expertise to identify, and to your point, John, like, does this make sense? What do I know about the data? What do I know about the nuances? Because that doesn't go away, right? What do I know about the way these metrics intersect with each other that may be informing a certain optimization? So that layer of expertise, that layer of knowledge is actually super critical in driving success of leveraging AI in our workflows.
I completely agree. And there's a trust factor. There is, transformation doesn't have an easy button. Change
Right.
management's required. So really good points there, Maggie. Jake, let me ask you a slightly different question here. Given Experian's, global business and as a large global brand, what does enterprise ready really mean for AI, especially when you think about, you mentioned governance before, but governance, guardrails, permissioning. So how do you think about that at Experian?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think one area that I think about when we think about enterprise, obviously, you know, I'm not dealing with like regional complexities because that's something, of course, at a global level, right? Those are things from everything from language to cultural norms. But even taking that aside, just here in in North America, I think enterprise for me and where this gets really interesting is in the ability to customize a workflow or customize a tool to numerous roles and responsibilities and seniority within a team. So the way that you could potentially think of prompts inside a tool within an LLM and the guardrails to which it responds based on, let's say, seniority of a role. If you have someone really junior that's querying a data set and pushing back on responses, well, how much bandwidth do you want to give them to really kind of turn left or right and kind of deeply go into a data set as opposed to a data scientist or someone more senior who has much wider guardrails and has the ability to really push the data further. I think those are really interesting ways to think about enterprise because it's not the way we typically think about enterprise, but I think in an AI world, those are really interesting ways that we can push the boundaries of how to make large data sets available to teams, but give them different levels of read and write access to things than we did before. So like that's one way in which I think we can kind of build once and
Mhm.
still make it really relevant for enterprise. And you need pretty sophisticated enterprise tools to be able to, there were always the days of like what level of permissions do different roles have within an organization. But now that we're talking about a two-way street where we're actually querying and getting responses, and then those responses become part of the history or the knowledge base of that particular client, then you really want to have great controls. And that's really an exciting part of this world as well, where like Maggie and I get to like work with the teams that are taking these things into account and saying, okay, well, no one's had to think about this before. How do we decide what are the guardrails for different LLMs, or what are the ways in which we want certain roles to be able to put their knowledge base into this moving forward so it becomes memorialized and becomes part of this knowledge set? Like those are all ways that we've got to think about enterprise.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. I think there's no one size fits all that's going to work well when you think about global complexity and then regional complexity and the things that you were just mentioning. And also just the ability to centralize the intelligence at a local level too, right? So super interesting. Uh, let's shift to the next topic. All right, practical implementation and infrastructure. Um, John, let's start with you on this one. So when you think about infrastructure, certainly something that's core to Akkio's heart, what's required to make AI really sing? What's missing from the typical media tech stack?
Yeah, I think that it's quite easy to adopt a spot workflow using some of the off-the-shelf tools or build like individualized solutions. And a lot of what we see happening early in the AI adoption curve is sort of the thousand flowers being planted in the field, but they're not connected, and they're not isolated. So practically speaking, what's important here is that you have a information architecture that is secure and considers the fact that you have different clients and different data permissions and abilities like Jake was talking about. So you need, maybe some data that is shared across like all different brands that an agency might work with. Maybe you have some, and then of course you have like first party data, like sales data or marketing data that needs to be containerized, and you absolutely cannot be shared with any other brand. And some of the largest agencies actually have competing brands, inside of like their umbrella. And so like you have to design around like information isolation, language model like isolation, enterprise security. Everything needs to be behind the firewall. Everything needs to be enterprise grade owned. The language models can't be learning from any of the interactions directly, so that they're leaking information back out into the market with the next release. But within that framework, you still have to have the ability for the agency to add their own like human knowledge and learnings and organization knowledge and learnings into the system. You need to have the brand team or the individual people who know the brand or the vertical best be able to like add that knowledge into the system. And then unique data needs to be added into the system. So it's a pretty complex environment, and I think getting that set up well is sort of the core thing you must do before you can start to have these like high value, like high volume workflows automated across the stack. Some of those you'll want to define static ways of doing things across an entire agency, because you've got like 20 years of knowledge or 50 years of knowledge on how to do a job well. And you'll want to say that everyone should do that job in that way. And some of them will be like custom to an individual brand. So like all that flexibility and connective tissue can only be enabled once you have the right sort of enterprise architecture in place, the right observability and the right monitoring stack. So that's what we spend like a lot of our time building, is the context containerization, the data containerization, the embeddability, hooking up directly to the data warehouse. So all of those pieces are sort of necessary prerequisites to adopt at scale and to enable cross workflow functionality.
Slight bonus question, John, off script here a little bit, but in terms of enterprises today, as they're building internally, is some of the legacy tech slowing things down a little bit because they have to retrofit and do different things to make AI work?
I don't know if slowing things down is the answer. I think there's a big question around which things that have been built in the past will leap over and fit in the future, and which things need to be rebuilt. I think like if you look at any one of those things, or the giant mess of things that may have been built in the past, and I think any organization that's been around long enough, like not just in media, has a lot of organizational functionality that's been built over time. You just really need to prioritize. Like anything, I think the job is picking the things that are most important first by overall impact to the business and to how you execute. And in my estimation, in the media space, the goal is to maximize the return on advertising spend for your clients. I think you can look down the stack of like capabilities and sort of very quickly isolate down which things are automatable and will have the most impact for your clients and start there. I think the long tail will come across like increasingly easily as the language model capabilities improve, because you'll be able to point a language model at an existing process and ask it to duplicate it, in an AI native way at some point in the future. So I wouldn't say slow down, but definitely there's a priority framework that needs to be applied.
Great, thank you for that. Maggie, and this
Yeah.
one I'm always interested in, because of how big, Havas is and so many different holding companies are out there. How are you structuring teams for effective human AI partnership?
Mhm. I mean, it's a great question, and it's one that I'm actually really passionate about because I have the luxury of looking back at my career and seeing the ways what I did and how it evolved and adopting technology and how it really firstly rebuilt the way that I worked in different parts of my career. And so when I look at Havas and our teams, first and foremost, it's really about upskilling. We can't underestimate the value of making sure everyone has the access and is practicing and really understanding the new skill set that comes along with this AI partnership, right? And I kind of liken it to you can put a 15-year-old or 16-year-old in a car, and sure, they might be able to get from A to B, but they may crash into, the sidewalk on the way, right? Well, we don't want that to happen. And as AI is really becoming more part of our day to day, we need to make sure that our teams know how to use it and that they know how to get from A to B, and when you need a detour, how to maneuver that and manage that. So one is the upskilling. And in fact, Havas has given access to Prof AI. I thought I was pretty great at writing prompts, and even I learned a lot from doing the training. So that is one way to make sure we're setting our teams up for success on how to think before you start that tool. The second thing is, and I think, most clients, will share feedback at times that, our reporting's not as insightful, right? Well, and that's fair feedback. But the reality is that we need to get our teams to think more about the questions our clients ask and how do we answer them. And to me, structuring our teams and leveraging AI in ways where we're driven by answering questions instead of driven by delivering data is going to be a real shift in the way we structure our teams. So even junior team members, right, should be learning more about, well, how is this brand manager or this marketer tackling these challenges? What data would help them understand how to make a better decision or a smarter decision on where the next dollar should go? So that our teams are learning more strategic thinking. They're learning more about marketing and the way media impacts our clients' business, and so that they're spending more time looking at the data to answer those questions versus curating data to deliver a report. So the bottom line is, I think that structuring of teams is going to be more that emphasis on strategic thinking, smarter recommendations, using AI to get there, instead of spending the bulk of their time on pulling data and creating charts, right? AI can take that off their plates. That gives them the chance to think. And that's going to be a real important, critical reframing for our teams.
Yeah, that's great. Upskilling is going to be critical, and I bet there are some training and enablement departments that might get a little extra budget in 2026. I really liked your driving analogy as well. Although I have a teenage daughter, it's about to drive, so I'm a little bit worried about that. Jake, before I move on, anything that you want to touch on there with regards to upskilling and change and how you guys are thinking about organizing your teams?
Yeah, I mean, so many thoughts. I mean, just listening to Maggie gave me like five, six thoughts. In fact, I was thinking of that auto analogy. I'm old enough that back in my day when you went on a trip, you went to AAA, right? And you like got the map of like your
The
trip.
guidance.
And and
Right.
and now we would never even consider doing that. Doesn't matter how old you are. You would use Google Maps or some other app on your phone that gives you guidance to how to get there, and you don't think twice about whether that information is correct or not. That's just assumed. And so those are behaviors that become learned over time, right? You try it once, and to John's point earlier, that's like it's a relatively low, you learn that's like a low risk input, right? Like it maybe makes a wrong turn here or there, maybe it takes an extra 10 minutes to get there, but it gets you there without you having to go to AAA and get the triptych, and right, like it saves you so many
Hmm.
steps. You learn over time. So I think there is just that need to just jump in a little bit and have each individual learn. It doesn't matter how old you are or where you are in your process. I think we're going to look back in a few years and say, oh, this was all table stakes. But you ladder people up with like lower stakes. You don't want to like dive in on that QBR, right? Where you need that really important client report and just say, gosh, I hope this is great. You want to make sure you're like doing it, and laddering up your expertise. I mean, certainly at Experian, there's tons of trainings going into all the different kinds of chat features that are available both
Hmm.
natively in certain Microsoft platforms, and all kinds of other use cases. So there's a lot of work going in on that stuff. I would say when it comes to like the practicality of you know implementation, which this slide here is reminding me. I think that while it's still early days, I think we've moved away from just like, oh my gosh, I used AI, to already thinking about like, well, how does this actually move the business forward? And I think that
Hmm.
um, so the practical is still has to be grounded in the business. Like we're early days, but it's more than a novelty. It's got to be absolutely grounded in business outcomes. And I think as a data business, that is the core of the Experian business globally. Like we are data and intelligence. Like the benefit of scale here is the amount of additional intelligence we can use now in driving insights through all of this data. So I mean, it's like the journey for us is kind of it presents itself quite easily in terms of just how much intelligence can be brought to the table. And I'll just give like one example because we've always been able to analyze data. But when you get to like multivariable and how much data can be going in and then how many variables can be coming out, you start to be able to really use like real time in new ways because the world is changing at a very fast pace. Macroeconomic trends are changing now day to day. Global politics is changing day to day, and the ability to like inform our data with what's happening day to day, make sure it stays totally fresh, totally informed, and totally relevant to our clients. So like it's from the very micro level at the individual level all the way up to the giant enterprise macroeconomic trends, and it can happen like relatively seamlessly. But it's beyond just, hey, I used AI. It's, hey, what did this inform for the business, and how did we create either new products or new insights that are valuable to our clients?
Hmm. It's great. And I also think, when we think about practical implementation, we also should look at practical results. A 10, 20, 30, 40% lift on something would be incredible with AI tools and AI usage versus I think sometimes people think it's got to like exponentially immediately change everything, right? Thank you for that input. That was really great. Let's shift to the next topic, please. Oh, we got one more. All right, we are missing one slide, I think, but next topic here, outcomes and measuring success. So let's get into this one. John, I'm gonna start here with you. Is AI simply accelerating what media companies already do, or is it a fundamental change of the work itself?
I mean, I think it's both. I don't think that's an or, actually. I think it's going to like obviously accelerate like a lot of different workflows and capabilities, but paired with that, because the people can spend more time thinking, and because you're now able to operate across more complex data environments, with less resources or more ability to ask follow-on questions or explore like the direction, I think you'll be able to improve and implement new ways of optimizing or executing that haven't really been practically possible in the past. And parts of those will be things that are like sort of promised, which is like we will run some media, we will measure the results, we will look at the measured results and optimize and rerun a new set of media with better targeting or better channel breakdown or whatever. That like process in reality is like a fairly slow process today because of all of the work that has to go into gathering the results, organizing them, figuring out what actually happened, trying to reformat all of the data from measurement into like a cohesive format so that you can like put a dashboard together to look at it to make the decisioning. As all of that stuff speeds up, the feedback loop gets tighter, the optimization gets better. You might call that accelerating a set of things, and I think it is. But I think once you've got that loop closed, you start to open a lot more ability or thought space about how to do things differently or execute differently as well. So I imagine we'll find new things to do in parallel with dramatically accelerating and improving the existing set of things.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that, John. Jake and Maggie, I want you to think about this as well. But Jake, how do you measure success and continuing to evolve this approach, right? We all know this is still new, so how we measure success of our use of AI is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer in a somewhat different manner, which is
Sure.
I don't think we're measuring success yet in global enterprise ways. I think we're measuring success more locally. I mean, of course, there's huge initiatives across the globe to ensure that we're staying up to speed and integrating systems in a very expeditious way. I would say, sitting here with you guys and with Havas, like ultimately that success is where we're learning how to partner with our partners in new and better ways, because this
Mhm.
isn't just about how do we use these tools internally to build our own insights, but media agencies and ad tech platforms and brands. I mean, these have been our partners for years, and that we don't plan on that changing, right? Like these partnerships need to become more powerful and they need to provide more value across the board. And those are things that humans will need to do for a very long time. And so I
Mhm.
think for me, the business isn't just about the hardcore technical components or infrastructure or the rollout, but it's really understanding what are the things that we bring to our partners in new ways. And then how do we connect our tools together to do that, right? There will become protocols that are already being rolled out, whether that's AdCP or MCP or tons of acronyms about different protocols that are being used so that our machines will be able to talk to their machines in new ways. But we have to understand what are the ways we provide value to those systems and what are the kinds of value that those systems are looking for. So I think for me, near term, it's not just like the internal piece, but also really understanding, hey, what do the holding companies need? What do independent agencies need? What are brands that are in-housing need? And those are all things that will, for the time being, still be human to human interaction. I'm excited for the times when there may be also some agentic components of a machine telling me, oh, here's what I'm looking for. And I've organized my data in a way where I can respond intelligently and deliver at real time. Like that's incredibly exciting. But I don't think it's just about like KPIs on a spreadsheet.
Mhm. Um, all really good. I really loved your point on improving partnerships throughout the ecosystem. I think that that's really strong. Maggie, just a little reaction there in terms of thinking about measuring success. Are you looking at it as time or efficiency or workflow change or happier clients? Like, how are you guys looking at it?
Well, first of all, the great thing is that we have ongoing metrics on client satisfaction across different areas, right? And I love a good KPI, but we can see that as being a way of like, are we actually making incremental improvements from the standpoint of the clients? Like their perception is a big part of like what matters and how we define if what we're doing is actually working. So yes, on the one hand, it's the client's satisfaction and reactions, which we track. The second thing is, of course, we need to nuts and bolts look at, are we reducing, truly reducing the amount of time spent on some menial tasks and instead shifting that time to more strategic thinking. And that's something that we can quantify and start seeing trends. And it may vary, right? The pace with which we can make those changes and see success is going to vary across the different disciplines. But the one thing that I hope to see, sooner rather than later, is that the more advanced analytics work that is really also going to benefit from AI becomes way more widespread and accessible to our clients. And so it no longer becomes a 3-month engagement, but rather in a few weeks, we can, or days, we can turn something around. And so leveraging that and it being frankly just, part of our normal day to day is something that I hope I can look back and say that I was a part of that. And in that, it loops back to client satisfaction because they're getting more data-driven insights that inform how to make smarter decisions for their business.
Very good. And of course, you, Jake, and John are a very big part of this change. Before we get to some Q&A, got a little lightning round. I love a little lightning round, and then we'll give some key takeaways here. From a lightning round perspective, I'm going to ask you, just try to answer in one word, maybe a phrase, whatever you like, but what becomes possible when humans and AI truly collaborate? Maggie, you want to go first?
Acceleration.
Excellent. Jake?
Scale of intelligence.
Very cool. And John, want to wrap that up?
Leverage. It's same theme, but leverage.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Very good discussion. We do have some key takeaways from the audience here. Human plus AI is how work actually gets done in the future here. Guardrails and governance enable, they don't constrain. Teams plus tech plus workflows make AI scalable, and outcomes are greater than activity. Measure what matters. We did have some questions come in live, so I'm going to see here what we want to throw at you. So be ready. Okay, I'm going to go back to sort of the upskilling conversation. Question came in from the audience, and maybe Maggie will start here. How do you upskill existing team members for the new way of working without overwhelming them or making them feel like they're starting from scratch?
Mm-hmm. It's about having the right preparation. And I'll say honestly, we often feel this pressure to rush and implement and get, new solutions up and running. And we often forget, do we have a plan? Are we clearly
Mhm.
defining roles? Are we clearly giving people what is their horizon that they should have their eye on? So I think it's really important that when building out the systems and integrating AI into our workflows, that there are people who are identified to really help map that out, so that people know this is what I'm working towards and how AI is going to help me get there. So it's about that reframing that I think is really important so that people don't feel like this is something new and different and their job is changed, but rather this is about improving and accelerating in great ways.
Yeah, and well, of course, remembering that we are all human and we have
That's right.
emotions and people do have some fears and things like that. So really good answer there. Another question that came in here, just give me a second because I'm reading these for the first time. I guess sort of along the same topic here. So Jake, I'm going to ask you this one. When you do have teams that just have different levels of AI comfort, some get excited for it, and some are certainly skeptical. How is Experian looking at creating alignment so that this all moves forward together?
Yeah, great question. It is pretty individualized. I would say that the best way that I can describe it is there are pretty easy entry points. Like again, I think we're still early enough days that there aren't a
Hmm.
lot of mandates in terms of you must be doing X by Y. And I think again for technical teams, they're pretty gung ho, and they've a lot of them are saying, "What are you talking about? ML's been in what we've done for the last 15 years. Or
Sure.
this is just a new way of saying API, right?" There's a lot of like, hey, we've already been doing this work forever. So great, love those guys. And then for the folks that are saying, geez, I haven't really taken a step into it yet. Sometimes it's really easy to just, again, as some of these enterprise tools get built into even like our Microsoft systems, like the first time, I don't know how long ago it was, probably over a year ago at this point, that, I said, hey, could you just review the last 3 months of communication I had with this person and give me 3 bullets for this call that's coming up? The amount like that would have taken me 2, 3 hours of like reviewing all,
Hmm.
like sometimes it's just like it's almost like a proxy, like, hey, you can query a somewhat live database of like your own communication, and it doesn't disintermediate anything between you and that other human you're going to talk to. It's just giving you a massive time saver to say, query all of my team's chats and all of my email and bring me back the nuggets so that we can have a informed conversation. Like that's such an accelerator to your own career, your own how you value your own time. And if you just start there, that's just like a quick inroad to say like, oh, okay, I start to understand. Oh, wait, these are tools that actually can like query large data sets in real time, right? And then you upskill from there. So I think sometimes it's not as hard as it seems. Like it really is just like giving people some inroads to like how it will improve their own personal work, and then it can move like into the enterprise.
Yeah, great response. And I think, regardless if people are excited or skeptical at work, even in your daily life, you're seeing, the change happening amongst people around you. What I find super interesting is just with like my wife and my daughters, how often I hear the word context, because they're thinking about when they're using AI to get answers, and that the context really matters. And I find that whole entire shift around outside of work interesting as well. Um, okay, cool. I think we'll take one more question here. And again, excuse me, because I'm reading for the first time. John, I'm going to toss one out to you, and then if we have time, we'll get some additional responses. But when you think about scaling AI collaboration beyond a pilot, what infrastructure capabilities start to become non-negotiable?
Yeah, my head first goes to role-based access control and permissioning.
Mhm.
Like you cannot throw everybody into the same shared environment and allow everyone to edit everyone else's work. And you'd rapidly create a giant mess. So you need organizational structure, the same structure you have in your organization today applied to your tooling and your capability set. You need permissions. You need, some of the things we talked about earlier, like observability and infrastructure are important to enabling that. But, that'd be like number one. And then number two is like, just because you have the right infrastructure and access permissions and enablement pieces in place, you still need to train, you still need to onboard, you still need to have like a path to get from where you are today to where you want to be. And that can be like challenging, especially as your organization is large, and you have to like train people. And so we've seen things where people train groups of people who then train more people. Sort of like a viral training type of approach is one way that this kind of works. And keep in mind, we have a particularly interesting challenge in the media space because to Maggie's point, where like perhaps the customer is asking their own questions of the data. Perhaps they also have access into the platform in the world that we're going into. Then you have to train them. And you have to make sure that they have the right roles and permissions. And the things that you might be doing that are on, call it scratch paper, may not want to go in front of the customer until they're mature, and vice versa. And so thinking about all of that, and the collaboration mechanisms in place in a platform, I think, are important. How do you? It's just like I don't know if anyone works across the sort of shared development stack in Microsoft or Google or something, but like you make a document, you can lock down permissions so other people can't edit it, or you can enable shared editing. I think all of that stuff needs to be thought about, and then really. When you have that core in place, you can train people and onboard them, and there's probably like progressive complexity unlocks that you need to walk through. Some very easy low hanging fruit, and then some very complex but very enabling advanced technology you can get into.
Excellent. And I know that our friends at Havas and Experian are thinking through all of these things. There is no easy button, that is for sure. We are all on a journey here of change. We have just a teeny bit of time left. Maggie or Jake, 30 seconds. Any final comments that you'd like to make? Maggie, go first.
Go ahead,
John,
Jake.
where does the word Akkio come from?
It's a funny story. So the Abe, who's my co-founder, and Ekin had done a hackathon a long time ago before we founded the company, and they found the shortest domain that they had was akk.io for like acknowledge input output. And so we just took the shortest domain we had and made that the name of the company. I'm not a big believer in spending too much time or money on the name. Eventually, of course, we acquired the .com, but that's the source.
Good response from the product guy versus the branding person. So, Maggie, any final comments?
No, I think, I hope that the participants take away that this is really an amazing turning point in our industry. And it should be met with excitement and curiosity. And I hope that teams that are starting their journey in the middle of it or the end of it, can share their experiences, because we're all headed in this direction. So,
yeah,
very exciting.
Very, very cool. Totally agree. Thank you very much for your time today as an audience. Thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate it. If you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And I think everyone has a moment in time to really have AI the way that they need it, and the way that's going to improve their work and improve their business. And I hope everyone is curious about what is happening in the industry and across the world. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.